Why is Israel so hard to defeat? The short answer is not that Israel is unbeatable. The research does not support that. Israel can be hit, surprised, and badly hurt. On October 7, 2023, Hamas carried out a surprise attack from Gaza that killed about 1,200 people in Israel and took about 250 hostages, according to widely reported figures in the research notes.
Nearly 2 years after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, Gaza has paid a massive price. The devastation rivaled only by the suffering of its people. Israel has killed more than 65,000 Palestinians, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Hundreds of thousands are displaced and homeless. Israeli attacks are only intensifying.
Do you accept any responsibility?
That attack exposed a real weakness. Israel is not invulnerable. But defeating Israel in war is a different question. That is where the picture changes. The mainstream view in the research is that Israel is extremely difficult to defeat because 5 strengths work together at the same time: geography, military spending, technology and intelligence, nuclear deterrence, and United States backing. Start with geography because it shapes everything else. Israel is small. The research notes say it is roughly 470 kilometers east to west and 135 kilometers north to south at its widest. That sounds like a weakness, and in some ways it is. A country with that size has very little room for error. Missiles, drones, and raids can reach population centers fast. Israel shares borders or active fronts connected to Lebanon, Syria, Gaza, and the West Bank, with Iran-backed groups operating across several of those areas. Yet that same small size gives Israel one major military advantage. It can move forces quickly inside its own territory. In a multi-front crisis, that matters. Short distances let the military shift aircraft, air defense, intelligence assets, and reserves faster than larger countries usually can. So Israel's geography creates danger, but it also creates speed. The next layer is money and preparation. According to SIPRI, Israel's military spending in 2024 reached $46.5 billion. That was a 65% jump from 2023, the largest annual increase since the Six-Day War period. SIPRI also said military spending reached 8.8% of GDP in 2024, second only to Ukraine. Over the decade from 2015 to 2024, the increase was 135%. Those numbers matter because they show this is not a normal peacetime military budget. Israel is paying for readiness at a level very few states can match. The same research also notes a cost. War spending pushed debt to GDP to about 69% by 2024, and the deficit rose to 7% of GDP in part because of war costs. So one common belief should be challenged here. People often say Israel survives because it is rich or because outside support solves everything. The data shows something harder. Israel survives partly because it chooses to carry a huge economic burden for defense. That defense spending connects to a long-running United States policy called the qualitative military edge. The research says this policy helps Israel procure more advanced military systems ahead of potential rivals in the region. In August 2024, Axios reported that the United States approved about $18.8 billion in arms sales, including 50 new F-15IA fighter jets and upgrades for 25 older F-15I jets. Then there is direct military aid. According to the Associated Press figure in the research, since October 7, 2023, the United States has provided about $17.9 billion in arms and military assistance, adjusted for inflation. That is not symbolic help. That is war-fighting support. Now to the third layer, technology and intelligence. The research describes Israel as a leader in drones, electronic warfare, cyber warfare, satellite surveillance, and AI-assisted targeting. Specific examples include the Elbit Hermes drone series, IAI Elta's Scorpius electronic warfare system, OFEC satellites, and a targeting system known as Gospel, or Habsora, which helps sift surveillance data and recommend bombing targets. This is where Israel becomes very hard to fight in a long war. It does not rely only on tanks, infantry, and aircraft. It builds a picture of the battlefield across air, space, cyber, and signals. In September 2025, Israel launched OFEC-19. According to the Associated Press reporting cited in the research, Israel reportedly gathered about 12,000 images over Iran during a recent 12-day war. Defense Minister Israel Katz said, "We are keeping an eye on you at all times and in all situations." That quote captures the point. Modern war is often about seeing first and striking first. Israel has invested heavily in both. There is also a controversial side to this advantage. The use of AI-assisted targeting and high-intensity bombing has drawn criticism over civilian casualties and possible violations of international humanitarian law, according to the research notes. So military strength does not erase political and moral pressure. In fact, it can increase it. Still, on pure battlefield effectiveness, the record is hard to ignore. Since its founding, Israel has fought major wars in 1948, 1956, 1967, and 1973, plus many smaller wars and low-intensity conflicts. According to the Hoover Institution material in the research, that history forced Israel to adapt to both regular armies and armed groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. Experience does not make a country perfect, as October 7th proved. But repeated combat does create institutions that learn fast. The fourth layer is deterrence, especially nuclear ambiguity. Israel has never officially confirmed that it has nuclear weapons. That policy is known as amimut, or nuclear ambiguity. But the research says Israel is widely believed to possess a stockpile, with estimates ranging between 80 and 200 warheads, and possibly more in some assessments. The UK Parliament Commons Library source cited in the notes says Israel is not part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and is believed to have land, sea, and air delivery options. An Associated Press report in the research says Israel reportedly holds about 1,110 kilograms of plutonium, enough for up to about 277 weapons, though actual stockpile estimates vary. That uncertainty is part of the deterrent. An enemy planning an all-out war has to ask a terrifying question. If Israel believed its survival was at risk, how far would it go? No Israeli government has answered that in public. It does not need to. The possibility alone changes the calculations of every state in the region. This is one reason why the idea of simply overrunning Israel with a larger army is much less realistic than it sounds. Any state thinking about that has to consider not just the conventional fight, but the risk of escalation into something far worse. The fifth layer is the alliance with the United States. This goes beyond aid packages and arms sales. It is about deterrence by association. A country attacking Israel has to think about the chance of drawing in the United States, directly or indirectly. The research notes continued strong U.S. support, joint development, weapons procurement, and intelligence cooperation. That support changes the balance before a war even begins. It also supports Israel's own military industry. In 2024, Israeli defense exports reached about $14.795 billion, a record high according to the reporting cited in the research. More than 50% went to Europe. Europe accounted for 54%, Asia-Pacific for 23%, and Abraham Accords signatory states for 12%. That means Israeli military technology is not just funded by the state. It is also validated by foreign buyers. This matters because it keeps factories running, research active, and systems tested under real pressure. Israel is not just using weapons. It is producing and exporting them during wartime. Now for the part many people miss. Being hard to defeat does not mean being able to solve every problem. The research is clear on this. Israel often wins tactical and battlefield contests, but long-term political outcomes are much harder. Non-state actors do not need to conquer Tel Aviv to claim survival. Missile barrages, guerrilla attacks, infiltration, and hostage-taking can all impose pain without winning a conventional war. The research also notes displacement, strain on civilian life, and unresolved threats from Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and allied militias. So the common belief that military superiority automatically brings political success is not supported by the evidence. Israel's strengths make it very hard to defeat. They do not guarantee peace, stability, or clear political victory. That is the real answer. Israel is difficult to defeat because it combines high military spending, fast internal movement, advanced surveillance, drones, cyber tools, AI-assisted targeting, combat experience, suspected nuclear deterrence, and massive U.S. support. According to SIPRI, the Associated Press, Axios, the UK Parliament Commons Library, and other sources in the research, these are not vague claims. They are backed by spending totals, export figures, policy structures, and a long war record. Israel can be hurt. It can be surprised. It can fail. October 7th proved that in the starkest way possible. But defeating it outright is a much bigger task. Any enemy would have to overcome a state that spends $46.5 billion a year on its military, devotes 8.8% of its economy to defense, receives major U.S. support, uses satellites like OFEC-19 for regional surveillance, exports nearly $14.8 billion in defense systems, and is widely believed to hold an unconfirmed nuclear arsenal. That is why no country can defeat Israel easily. Not because Israel has no weaknesses, but because its defense is built in layers, and every layer makes the cost of attacking it much higher.